गुड मॉर्निंग एंड वेलकम to Gana Short. Gana Short में आप सबका स्वागत है. At the outset, I've had to start an hour late because there's a storm brewing off the Chennai coast and things were not very conducive for me to even talk. A lot of rain and all that. Even now there's rain, a lot of breeze going on. So if you come across some disturbances or feel some disturbances, well, nature is at its best. Right, we're going to talk of something very, 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 very important which is happening in our nation. And this I've spoken of earlier. I said India is move on the move. India is changing and it can't be stopped. Today I'm going to talk of India's power shift. And I'm talking of all this as a series. This is not the first video I'm doing on this. It's a series so that you understand what's happening in India. India is changing, India is changing, and it's growing up the value chain. It's something which I've spoken of long back. And I've always said that India is not stoppable. And that is manifesting itself here. And today we are going to talk of that. We're going to talk of all this. But is it just that a flash, of, in the pan? No, it's not. It's sustained. Many people will disagree with what I speak today. Many people have already come out on the social media and decried that India's growth is jobless wonder and manufacturing less wonder. That's fine. That's their view. But I have my view, and my view is not for a particular government, it's not for a particular sect, it's not for a particular region, it's for the country as a whole, and based on my observation of people. Because at the end of the day, it's the people who make a country, it's the people who make an economy, it's the people who make a nation. And we're talking of that power shift which is happening, right? And let's get going. The other day, uh, this came out that we are growing at 8.2%. This is the second quarter in which growth of 8.2% has been recorded. Last quarter also 8.2%. Half a year, 8.2%. Even in the other two quarters, if you grow at 6%, you overall 7 plus. It is something. It is something. What is interesting is now manufacturing has grown at 9%. Services, which is our strength, has grown at 10%. So these two are the main legs of our economy. Why? I'll tell you why they're main legs. Services, we are always strong. We always got a high degree of service component in our GDP, up to about 60 to 70%. No, manufacturing was low, and manufacturing was our weak leg. I said two legs, weak leg. It's not a strong leg. But manufacturing in the past one quarter growing at 9% is strengthening itself. And this will only increase. We have headroom for manufacturing and industrialization. The second factor which I'd like to highlight to everyone. People say that, look, India can't replace China. India should not replace China. That's the worst which can happen to us. India can't manufacture the way China does. We are not interested in it. India will not industrialize the way China has done. It will not happen. Let's go with the fact that India will not be an industrial nation. India is a mix of many things, but a balanced homogeneity or a balanced heterogeneity. I wouldn't say homogeneity, heterogeneity is a better word. And if we get our manufacturing up to about 20-25% of our economy, we are there. We don't have to be the 30-40% which China is. And that is something which people have to understand. Right. Before I go further, I'd like to take one comment which came from Varga. He says, request to put some humor with smiles in your delivery. You carry serious and angry young man looks. We know the topics you talk are serious ones, so it should carry some humor. Well, all my humor are in my thumbnails. If you see, all my thumbnails are humorous. I put cartoons where feasible, all that. And well, topics are serious. How do I this thing? The only way I can make it humorous is induce some anecdote, which I do. Right. Having said that, let's go ahead. But I'll try. Humor is not natural to me, right? That I must admit it. So let's go ahead. 8.2% is solid growth, right? People say, "Oh, China grew at 10%. Why not this?" Well, you have to live in. You're living in different times, and you look at this. This is a clip by one of the CEOs of investing firm. He's talking of the other economies and India growing at 7%. You look at the whole thing. And I'll play that clip what he says. Right? You look at this. This India is 7%. The rest of the economies are anywhere between this is it. And many economies are cratering, contracting. They've not shown China's. Very deliberately, these chaps have not shown China because many people believe that China is itself contracting, but it's projecting more, which is always the case with China. It lies. So when you look at this, you understand the difference between what's happening in the rest of the world, what's happening in India. And that is where this power shift is happening. Right? And let's hear what he says, what this man says. So, as per him, India is investing in legal infrastructure, physical infrastructure, capital market infrastructure. And he says, despite geopolitical tensions, it's moving ahead, right? And of course, he says this is a place we particularly like. And what I liked about this is not what he spoke, but the differential between India's growth and others. We are taking our own systems for granted. That's the thing we have to understand. We are doing phenomenally well, let me tell you. And everyone talks of China, 4% of China, which is at $19 trillion, is much more than 8% of India, which is at $4 trillion. But is China growing? And I'll talk of China, where China is still cratering, where China has got a major, major problem. I'm going to show it today. People have to understand this. Right. Next, this 2025 ranking came out from Australia. Right. He says, what's the comprehensive power of nations? And if you look at this, he says, the superpowers are those which have more than 70% of, they have a metric which I'm not going to go into. He says United States has 80 points, China has 73, both as per him are superpowers. And India has more than 40 points. It's just about 40 points. It's a major power. The rest are middle powers from Japan, Russia, Australia, South Korea, everything. The interesting thing here is this, that the power shift is we have now, as per this ranking in Asia and all over the world, India has shifted from being a middle power to a major power. You matter. Next only to the superpowers. So it comes back, if you go by this, we are the third pole in the world. And I've written about India being the third pole long back. So I'm not an economist, I'm not a businessman, I'm not nothing. I'm just a simple army man who's watched India, who feels the pulse of India. And it was my prediction 2 years back that we'll be the third pole. It's coming true. And I'm making this prediction again. Watch it 2030. You'll find a different geopolitical setup. For many reasons, including that of China. Right? From here on, our rise or shift will be geometric in nature. That's the way, that's the law of nature. Right? And this comes out, the Russians echo us. He says India's rise, this from Russian TV, it says India's rise is driven by strong economic growth, future resources, with only the US and China ahead of them. Right. Now, the point is this, I'll go back to this power shift and you have a look at it. What are the top five powers today as per this? It is US, China, India, Japan, and Russia. Right? Which are the two powers which are best with each other? India and Russia. Right? And of course, the Russia China equation is also very good. Right? But if you look at other powers, they're all not okay with each other. In fact, India is very good with Japan also. You look at Japan, Japan has problems with China and Russia. And its relationship with USA is uneasy today. Look at USA. USA is in the past, this year, 5, 6, 7 months, its relations with Russia, India, and China have not been good. And Japan, they've treated Japan as a handmaiden. I can go like this in a circular manner. India has the best credentials in countries which are part of the middle power compact. So India as a major power has only one way to go up, and this power shift is happening. Right? That has to be understood, and India can't be stopped. Look, this clip I'm going to show you is of Bloomberg. The US media, in particular, have been very critical about India. They've been disparaging about India, whether it's the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, or Washington Post, or anyone. There's a bipartisan attitude in US media to run down India. Yet, you watch this clip by Bloomberg, and we'll discuss this after that because I'll explain the yet part of it then. Look, for 2 straight months, our exports have declined, 50% tariffs, and India grows at 8.2%. That's the point I'm going to keep making in this video. Right. So our economy is growing at 8.2% despite the headwinds. The important factor is every economic indicator in India is against its growth, but yet it is growing. And this is what this guy from Bloomberg acknowledges and highlights. Right? New labor laws. Very important. Labor has been a problem in India. And slowly and steadily, I will give credit to our government. They've changed this story. And people have accepted it because it is in their interest. The old labor laws and all those things, strikes, yeah, or the past, gone, just gone with the wind, scattered, and things have changed. Because people have to live and people have to progress. People want to progress. Yeah. So there are dangers to this growth. But the interesting part of this clip is this: India has grown despite headwinds, severe headwinds, he says. He says, look, India doesn't have infrastructure, but the investing guys say, look, India has tremendous infrastructure, legal infrastructure, capital market infrastructure, and India is reforming all that. Who do you believe? I would go with the earlier, not because it suits me, because he's a chap who's going to get money and put it in India. And India is attracting more FDI than China today, or for that matter, any country, because the growth is here. And if some of these roadblocks to growth go away, which is expected, people say by end of next month, the deal with US will be in place. If that happens and the tariffs go down and your exports start going back, you might be looking at a completely different format of growth. We don't know how we'll grow. Whether, I mean, I can't say this because I'm not an expert at it, but I know that we will continue at this same growth given everything else. And I'm very clear that India can't be stopped. India can't be stopped because the people of India can't be stopped. You can't stop 1.4 billion aspiring people from their growth. Politically, we are strong. Many people might not agree with this, but fundamental politics in this country is strong. All you have to do is look at Pakistan next door, which is growing negatively. Look at China, which has got tremendous problems, which I've been speaking of, and I'll highlight some of them now. Right? So, in terms of growth, in terms of power shift, I have no doubts that India is growing and growing fast. It's time the world catches up with us. And this is something which I spoke last time, based on that article by John Spencer, that India is rewriting the rules, the strategic rules of the game, and the world, rest of the world has to catch up. And this is an article which came out in South China Morning Post, because I don't take, I don't discuss anything based on our own media. Very rarely I bring our own media. Most of the time I get media an outside view, because the outsider's view is always critical. It is objective and it might be even negative, but that's what you need to look at. And this says India races to build its lost maritime muscle, and we are against the clock. You go to other Chinese things, they say, oh, India is nowhere near China, Korea, Japan. I completely agree with it. Many people here will say, oh, sir, India is not growing as fast as China. We don't have that big a shipbuilding as China. I agree with it, but you have started. The biggest problem when you push a car is to push the car and it moves. Once the wheel starts rotating, speed apne aap aa jata hai, right? And this is what our defense minister had to say. He says we want to become the sustainment and refit hub for the entire Indo-Pacific region, and it's happening. It's not something which is still up in the air because our shipyards today are increasingly being engaged by everyone for this because there's no angle in this, there's no geopolitical angle in this. That's the important part. We have enough shipyards, we have capacities, and as this retrofit thing comes, slowly you'll start manufacturing and your capacity expansion will increase, and your maritime footprint is also going to increase. When that footprint increases, your power shift will be even more prominent. Let's hear. You have shallow water capability building, you have aircraft carrier building, and any kind of surface vessel building for defense purposes and for commercial purposes. So far, our capacities have been largely used for defense purposes. Today, with refit coming in, and refit largely of uh, services or the armed forces refits internationally, you're going to increase your capabilities. And then it's a matter of time before your commercial capability also increases. And that is a major, major power shift. The one missing thing is aircraft building capability. But I think it's only a matter of time because Hyderabad, as it is, has become a MRO hub for aircraft. You'll see this shift happening. And it's happening in front of our eyes. And I keep repeating this. I see it in front of my eyes because 100 meters away from my house is a metro hub coming up in Chennai. When I came first to Chennai after retirement, I saw one metro station here with one line going from the railway station to the airport. In the past 8 years, I saw the second line come up. Now I'm seeing four more lines coming up at pace all over. There's a change. The first one came, 2 years later, the second one came, 3 years later, now the four being built up. And in 3 years, we will have 8 to 10 lines in Chennai, gridded system. And I'm very clear that if this is happening in Chennai, It's happening everywhere else. It might not happen at the same pace, it might not happen at the same scale, but it's happening in time. I've given you two examples, one of metros, the other of shipbuilding. It changes things. When I first started riding in the metro in Chennai, there was hardly anyone. And when I used to ask people, sir, it's too costly to go in that. Today, let me say, not when I say today, the past 4 months, 3, 4 months, you have to stand and go in that metro. Things have changed. It's crowded. For sure, things are changing because people find value in all these things. It's people who change the way we go up and the way we shift our power. And people are changing it at pace and they can't be stopped. The difference between us and China is that here the people are pushing the economy. In China, it's the people who are dragging the economy down. That's for different reasons, but we'll talk of it still. You have to understand that. And look at this from Israel. Of course, Israel is. So, what he says, that's why I picked this clip up. He says, India 3 years ago and India now is not the same India. That's the change which is happening. And that's the change we have to recognize within ourselves. Look at him. He he's an Israeli. Like he comes for to here for business. I'm okay with it. Let him come. And so many people have to come to business. What he says is the change, the pace of change which is happening in India. Now club it with the GDP growth. Club it with what he says. Now there's an Israeli who says your infrastructure is growing at pace. Okay, there's a businessman who says India is putting its infrastructure together. And there is the New York media or the English media which says India doesn't have infrastructure. And this is echoed in the Chinese media also. And we believe it. Why are these chaps saying what something which is untrue? Because they don't like what's happening in India. Neither does in China or USA like what's happening in India. India is changing, and we as people of India have to change with this change. The pace is important. I always say the flow of the river is more important than a stagnant pond. Right. Let's go ahead. This is a report 2 days back from China, Guangzhou. I keep going back to Guangzhou because Guangzhou is a pro CCP hardcore Mandarin tabloid, much in the thing of global times. But it's a little more interesting because they get a lot of good guys or qualified guys to speak, and they cover a wider range of topics. Right? He says to reduce import dependence, India approves 72.8 billion rupees rare earth magnetic manufacturing plan. Yeah, we don't have rare earths today. I have no doubt about it. But India has done that. I didn't know about it. I'll be very honest. I didn't read it, or maybe I missed this news. I picked it up in the Chinese media that they're doing it. And when I go into it and I go do backward integration with what I have already spoken to all of you, I find it's true. And why wouldn't we do it? That's what I've been asking. India has got all the rare earths which we need. We have some of the highest deposits of rare earths. You use the thorium sands, which are full of rare earths, and you get into as you get into a thorium cycle, to the higher end of your thorium cycle or to the terminal end of your thorium cycle, you will get rare earths. And we have already started investing to make rare earths magnets. India is actually self-dependent for strategic purposes on samarium-based magnets, which US is also not self-independent. Incidentally, not samarium, not dysprosium or terbium. We don't have that. That is there in Myanmar and maybe in the northeast. Even China doesn't have. China also depends on getting it from Myanmar. You make it, and we've started the process. The process will take time. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to happen over maybe 4, 3, 5, 6, 10 years. गाड़ी चल पड़ा है भाई, गाड़ी चल पड़ा है और ये गाड़ी रुकेगा नहीं, right? And if you don't have a particular rare earth or a particular magnet, trade and find alternatives. Who knows, in the next 5 years, maybe these rare earths and their magnets and alternatives are of no use. Already people are saying that they're looking at alternates to rare earth magnets. Technology. I heard a Pune based firm which says we'll produce motors which don't need rare earth magnets. It'll come up. You can't stop people. US economy, China economy, I've spoken. They're both big economies. They're the bigger powers as per that power index. उसमें doubt नहीं है. But they're sluggish today. They're not growing. They're losing influence. Both US and China are losing influence because no one trusts them. Japan doesn't trust them. Russia doesn't trust them. Russia doesn't trust China either, but Russia trusts India. Again, I go back to the top five. Right? The top five economies in the world. Trust deficit is high, but everyone trusts India. Both US and China have internal political and military problems. On this, I've said many times. Because this is a slide I keep repeating with every such video. The rest of the world wants to reduce dependency on these countries. Both these countries want influence but don't want responsibility. And one thing, both these countries are united against India. They feel that tomorrow India will upturn the whole story for them. And that is something we have to be cognizant of. And between the two, China is our bigger threat. That's a physical threat with 3,000 kilometers of border. And this power shift, which is happening, has to factor that in. When I say China, I include Pakistan also. Because Pakistan is just a cat's paw of China. And the way I look at it, you break the cat's paw, you break China. Don't concentrate on you trade with China, do anything with China, but break Pakistan. China will get hit. We need to change because our power is changing, our shift is changing, our thinking has to change. You block against China and hit Pakistan. And as far as China is concerned, this is what our external affairs minister said recently in IIM Calcutta, right? And This is important. He says China is playing by its own rules and rewriting them. We have to understand why China is doing what it is doing because it's going to affect your power shift. It is doing because internally it can't grow unless it creates an external environment. It cannot go off. It is pure mercantilism. If you examine the Europe of the 17th and the 18th century, or even up to the 19th century, more so the 18th, 19th, 18th, 19th century, where colonialism was at its peak. What was it all about? Why did the Europeans come out to do colonize the whole world? Because the resources were outside. They didn't have anything. So they looted their colonies and took the wealth back home to revive their own economies, grow their own economies, and today they are wealthy. China is following that same playbook today. Internally, China is weak. China has gone this external route. It wants to establish an alternate global order, this, that, all that nonsense, so that it can enrich itself and revive itself internally. But there's a difference between what China is and what Europe was then. That I will discuss on another day. But today we have to understand that China is virtually your mortal friend or your mortal enemy. Call it what you want. It's not a frenemy. It doesn't want you to grow. Whatever China does to you is against us. So, in this context, let's understand what China is going to do and where it is heading. Today, China has started a new story of manufacturing drugs, biotech, because they find that EV, solar, all that have reached their limit. That is your danger because they're trying to hit your drug economy, your pharma. Your pharma is the next thing, and you need to protect it. How you do it is going to be important because part of your own growth and part of your own GDP is pharma, a major part. And if that collapses, many things collapse. And that collapse, which these chaps can engineer, will be to their benefit. And this is what happened in the turn of the century when you had all the APIs and the APIs were undercut, API manufacturing capability in India. We were self-sufficient for pharma industry. But they finished off our APIs, made us completely dependent on the APIs from China. To some extent, we have reversed it. Maybe another next 3-4 years, we'll come to that threshold where they can't hold us to ransom. And it will be their interest to sell APIs to you. But that will only be feasible if you maintain your competitiveness in this sector. And that means own research. In this power shift, as we grow higher up the value chain with greater GDPs, we have to invest into our R&D. This is a cycle. In this cycle, if you today don't invest into your R&D, you lose your competitiveness and your leadership in whichever field you have. And I did a program earlier which said, look, China is now examining our pharma industry in detail and they know that they can't catch up with us today. But what about tomorrow? The only advantage we have is they can't capture the Chinese American market for many reasons. But we don't know tomorrow what will happen. How do you get hold of that? It's something we have to understand because China is getting after this. And then, of course, they're not going to, whatever's happened with that Arunachal lady, Tangbok, Pem Tangbok, at Shanghai, is not an accident. It is by design. Now, articles like this are coming out. It says India is using visas to conduct compliance tests on Chinese citizens. They're saying, look, India doesn't give visas easily. Don't think you'll get India's visas. EAO. So they're trying to slander us. They're slandering India and its system. This is a designed thing which is happening. When I say that the biggest threat to our nation is China, it is based on these things. Whatever US does, we know how to handle it. We've been dealing with US for a long time. We know how to handle it, but not China. This is something we need to clearly understand. Right? Now, there's another thing which we need to understand. China is projecting itself as a great force XYZ. It may be so because it's accumulated enough economic power, it has accumulated enough military power, at least on paper, and many things. But what is the reality of internal China? The demography is at a place where it will never come back. On that, there's no doubt about. I have no doubt. Right? Internally, their consumption and internal demand is weak. But articles like this are coming out. China is already a domestic demand-led country. How to further expand domestic demand? How do you expand? I mean, this is a stupid article which comes out. But this kind of article is what feeds the propaganda of the Chinese. What's their narrative? Oh, we are okay. We have adequate demand, but we have to expand our demand. Well, if your demand is okay, why do you need to expand it? So when the Chinese say something like this, you have to understand their problems. In our case, we are a domestic driven economy. This is what the RBI chief said in New York 2 months back, which I conveyed to you in one of my videos. After this, I'll put all those 3 videos which I did earlier and the links in this so that you have a clear idea as to where we are. So the correlation between what I said earlier and what is there now. But in China, the entire business of consumption and domestic demand is cratering. Xinhua came out with, China eyes improved supply demand alignment to unlock consumption potential. They have a huge potential, there's no doubt. They also have about 1.3 billion people or 1.2 billion people, depending on where they are. And that consumption potential is there. And Xinhua comes out and says, oh, we are doing well. That's the narrative. But the truth is something else. And the truth comes out, I keep following this gentleman, Michael Pettis, who's based in China. He teaches economics at Tsinghua University. And it's interesting to see how China is lying and how we get taken up by it. I've shown you 2 articles which say that everything is okay in China, demand is okay, consumption is okay, everything is okay. What does he say? We have to understand this because we should be clear what's happening in India vis-a-vis what's happening in China. Don't compare yourself with China because China is doing something which is completely different from what you are. He says, China goes on to say consumption remains a robust driver of Chinese economy. That's part of the article. In the first 3 quarters of this year, final consumption expenditure contributed 53.5% China's economic growth compared to 44.5% in the entirety of 2024. When you read it, it says, oh yeah, China has increased its consumption from 44% to 53%. Oh well, China is back on the track. But then he says, this is a little dishonest. He's using the words dishonest. Consumption's 53.5% contribution to GDP in 2025 is certainly better than its 2024 contribution of 44.5. Both are bad numbers and well below the already low 60% it typically contributed to GDP before COVID. When GDP contribution, rather consumption was 60% of Chinese GDP before COVID 5 years back, everyone said it is low. and China needs to increase its consumption. That's there in that report of 2030 by the World Bank and China. That it needs to go up to, say, 70% if you want to be a major economy. But it has gone down. 5 years later, what do you see? The consumption is not picking up. And that's what I always say. China is a rich state with poor people. Right? There's another very nice metric. Today morning, I found this article. It says cheap hotels are disappearing in bulk in China. Why are they disappearing in bulk? 3-4 months back, I did the program in which I I gave out the details of five-star hotels disappearing in China. Or the number of five-star hotels I still remember came down from something like 1400 or so down to 800 in the entire China. Right? And today, cheap hotels are also disappearing. Why? People are not traveling internally. People don't need. Why will hotels pack up? Why will five-star people pack up? Five-star chains pack up. He talks of budget hotels, internal chains also packing up. People are not traveling. Why aren't people not traveling? People can't afford travel. People don't want to travel, or there's no business to travel. There's no jobs to travel. Just think. These are the hard facts of China. Chinese banks slashed loan rates. How much can you slash? There are certain banks which, this is from Kexin. If you see here, it says below 2%. The interest rates are below 2%. In many banks, it's already at 1%. How much more can you slash rates? So maybe 3-4 months back when I spoke of slashing rates, 50% of the banks were given at almost 1%. Today, the rest have also joined that bandwagon. You look at the internal finances of China. People can't deposit money in banks because there's no interest. People, probably the next article which I'll do or next program I'll do, I'll say, look, people have to pay for keeping their money in a bank. So what is the Chinese government forcing them to do? Buy stocks, bonds, and all government bonds. So with that government bonds, which are never going to be returned, what is the Chinese government doing? They're subsidizing. I keep saying this. This is the subsidy cycle in China. When you say China gives heavy subsidies to their industry, what does it do? It is taking money from the people and subsidizing industry. And that industry is going at loss, it's not selling. So they have to go out and sell at loss. This entire machine is being subsidized by the people. That is why, as days go by, the people will become poorer, poorer, and poorer, and the Chinese party Communist Party and the state will become richer, richer, and richer. This is going back to imperial China, conditions of imperial China. This is going back to the conditions of colonial Europe and the mercantilism. That's the danger from China to the outside world, because today China depends on its growth more for outside than inside. There's a schism developing in China, and that schism has implications for India and its power shift. Why am I spending time here? It's because of that. There are economists in China who say you need to increase consumption if you want long-term goals. If you want long-term goals to be achieved, you need consumption. So all these big targets which China sets and says it has achieved is all false. If the targets which have been set by China are being achieved by China, then they shouldn't be talking of how to get those long-term goals because of lack of consumption. And the fundamental reason is property. That slump is not going away. This is again yesterday's article. China's extended property slump was always expected and it is not going away. Everyone talks of EVs, batteries, yeah, whoa. There's no demand within, it's only outside. And in outside, any day now, if not now, 1 year, 2 years hence, you will find this problem happening that their EVs will collapse. And then on the other hand, you have China. What is it doing? It's weakening India. This article is about India and Washington Post. Weaken China's rival a strained strategy. But it is in US interest that India remains weak. At least that's what people say. So the strategic partnership, friendship with USA is all gone. What we have is a working relationship. Yes, the trade deal with USA will unlock certain gates. But we need to expect that something will happen as a result of all that. But India is strong, damn it. Today there's a cyclone in Sri Lanka. Whom did they respond to? Whom did they call out to? India. India was the first responder. And this fact will get repeated anywhere in the Indian Ocean. Countries like Bangladesh will, it's only a matter of one natural disaster for them to start thinking differently. And then we have age and time on our side, not on theirs. This is a powerful graph which I keep showing to everyone. And our government is aware of this. Listen to what he says. New trade arrangements and fresh connectivity. And this new trade arrangements and fresh connectivity is away from USA and China. In fact, I'd recommend you to watch this entire talk which he gave at IM Calcutta, or External Affairs Minister. I think it gives out exactly where India is and what India is doing. The world gives a lot of importance to ties with India. On that, let's not have doubts, right? I've always spoken of it. Strategic, economic considerations, and people centric views. If we stick to this, we are okay. And I keep showing this connectivity circle, expanded story of our India's growth. Why are so many countries coming here? I've been adding one by one meticulously to show that India is sought after by so many countries, right? And that is what a external affairs minister also indicated. The world attaches importance to our growth and seeks more interconnectivity. India can't be stopped. Understand, between US and China, the greater threat is China for many reasons, which we all know and I've spoken of, and I keep proving it. People say I'm a Chinese hawk. I'm not a Chinese hawk, I'm a Chinese realist. What China is trying to do, we should understand. And India has to grow on its own legs with or without USA. and definitely learn to do things without China. Because what has happened in this, whether this diplomatic thing and all is part of a well laid out strategy, and more will come up of this. And I always say, our biggest problem, our cancer, is next door in Pakistan. And today evening, maybe we'll talk of Pakistan. We need to talk of Pakistan because what's happening in Pakistan is pretty unnatural. I won't say it's unnatural, it's episodic, right? And we'll talk of it. Imran Khan, ye, wo, all that. And then I come to, the thing which I always finish off such talks with. Is India safe? Can India handle the threat it faces? Understand, India has never been invaded by sea. There's no threat to India from a coast. The only threat to India is either from China or Tibet. But Tibet, sorry, a threat to India is from China through Tibet or from Pakistan through whatever they can. But you have a very strong army defending this nation. People say, oh, our army is not strong enough. Our army is this X, Y, Z. And people still refuse to believe that Indian army is so strong. After what it did in Option War to the Pakistan armed forces and the Chinese equipment. Narratives. These are all narratives. What is the reality? You have some of the strongest armed forces guarding this nation. Look at this little clip I'm going to show you. This is about how people survive or how things are in the Siachen Glacier. I'm showing Siachen Glacier, which is an extremity. But this extremity exists in many parts of the Indo-China border and the Pakistan border. So we had to listen to this whole story. Yeah. See, this is where, people have to realize what India is all about. Our men guard this nation under these conditions. They can defend and survive here, where everything freezes. The man doesn't freeze. Look at the young three boys. One of them is from the northeast, and he's explaining to us is why how life on the glacier is. Same thing happens in eastern Ladakh and many places in Sikkim, super high altitudes of Sikkim on the plateau, and also in some places in Kargil and all that. Here, no technology works. Human technology works. Human innovation works. The spirit works. The most important thing is not the environment. Look at the way these three boys are behaving. Look at the look at how they are talking. Look at how they're smiling. That's the thing which you have to understand. That is how Indian army is so tough. There's no tougher army in this world, right? There's no tougher army in this world. This chap says, Varga says, sir, you should be say something nice, humorous, and all. Let me recount my own experience on the glacier. One day I was in Ladakh, and I was in charge of ensuring that everyone on every corner of the glacier got their supplies and everything. One part of their supplies was I was the colonel in charge of administration of the division, Trishul Div. One part of their rations was Cadbury chocolates. You get the big, huge Cadbury chocolates. Give it. So one day, requirement came. Look, at one place, a helipad has to be constructed. So I called my guy in charge of stores, I said, look, a helipad has to be constructed here, there. So what does it take to shift stores up, work it out? We have to do it in a very short time frame and all that. So I started talking to the battalion commander and the post commander. Look, we need to have a helipad there. It's their requirement. He said, sir, send the helicopter and ensure the helicopter lands there. I said, how? I said, you need a lot of equipment. You need a sheet, you need, slats, you need everything to make a platform. He says, don't worry, sir. I'll make that. I said, what? I'll use Cadbury chocolates. Huh? Cadbury chocolates. Cadbury chocolates stacked, decked, made the helicopter deck in Siachen Glacier. I couldn't think of it. These boys were so innovative that within a matter of 3 days, with Cadbury chocolates available with them on their post, and someone went and dropped Cadbury chocolates next 2-3 days, and they made a helipad. Can you think of it? This is Indian Army. All this talk of AI, and all that fails there. That's why I say you need technology which suits that terrain and that condition and that operational and that set of people who are fighting. Fighting is a big different ball game. Right? So I thought I'll end this up. Till such time you have such great guys defending our nation, our power will only go up. A major component of this is this. Just think. In the beginning, when I started, I said 8.2% growth with headwinds. We're not a fully modernized army. If you incrementally increase this, remove the headwinds, and modernize our army, where will we be? And this is what I always say, that more often times we underestimate our own strength. Well, I do hope you like this video. If you like this video, do press the like button. Do subscribe to Gunner Shot. Also press that bell icon. And do join me as members. And I'd like to thank all of you who joined me, though my program started late. Like I said, today there's a cyclone blowing off the coast of Chennai, Ditwa, which has come up from Sri Lanka. My heart goes out to all those boys, all those people in Sri Lanka who weathered this storm. And I'm proud that the Indian Armed Forces and India are the first responder in the Indian Ocean. That's part of India's power projected. China didn't come here. Remember that. China has never helped anyone. And this is where India gets its trust. With this, thank you. I'll take a few questions. Yeah. First and foremost, can we defend against HIMARS if US gives to Pakistan Can you please talk about Coco Island and Kral Canal threat to Andaman? Look, first and foremost, be rest assured that US will not give HIMARS to Pakistan. We will not allow it to happen. Don't worry. It will not. Okay. So, in any case, even if it comes, they already have Russian equipment, and HIMARS is not so great. And if even if US gives it to Pakistan, they'll give the old version. So don't worry about it. Yeah, one of these days I'll talk about Coco Islands and Kral Canal. It's not a threat. Then it's not threat to Andaman. Let me be clear. I did speak when I spoke about Andaman Nicobar, but as part of my travelogue, I will speak of Andaman Nicobar and I'll explain to you what Andaman Nicobar is. My next travelogue will be on the Kameng sector, Arunachal Pradesh, and I'll do that. And things will be okay. Things are okay. Don't worry. Like I said, we overestimate others what they can do, and we underestimate what we can do. Don't worry. Sham Tarun, thanks a lot for your contribution, and Harsha, thanks a lot for becoming a YouTube member. Thank you. Uh, I need a bit of feedback from all of you, which says, yeah, I've been doing this podcast on and off between the vertical orientation and the landscape. Like today, I'm doing it on both modes. I need a bit of feedback from you whether I should continue doing both these or only in landscape. Do put it in your comments, or you could, post it on Ganashort website, and do let me know so that I can do things the way all of you want. Right? If you're not finding this vertical orientation comfortable, I'll stop it. Right? Based on the feedback you give. Okay. Mm. BJP and Modi is criminal destroying India? I don't think so. I don't think so. These are extreme ideas. I don't think so. All GDP numbers are fudged and fabricated. Again, don't think so. There might be some increment, but if you think ours are fabricated, what about others? You can't fabricate this kind of growth. Okay. Yeah. Growth is a tight slap for those who are trolling, saying dead economy. I completely agree with you. Look, a platform like Bloomberg comes out and talks what it spoke. That's why I say I take outsiders' views. Don't discuss this politically, whether the government is good, bad, or not, BJP is good. That's a poor way of coming and talking here. Yeah. Oh, all the videos you're playing, no volume. Sorry, the no volume. If there's some technical glitch, so what I'll do is I'll download all this and put it back up with the volume incorporated. Right. Yeah. Saw your amazing video with General Dua. Thank you. Yeah. Can't hear the audio of the guy's presentation, unfortunately. I mean, I'm sorry. I just showed it. I didn't realize it. So what I'll do is, like I said, do watch this with those presentations. I'll put them in immediately after this. Put 90% of your money in the market with some of these stocks and share a screenshot with us. Bullshit propaganda of this government. Look, I'm not part of the government. Okay. True monk, I'm not part of the government. You can keep talking what you want, but I'm not part of the government. Yeah. I'll replay this with the thing. Yeah. Sir, you once mentioned that this is not the Asian century but the Indian century. Can we get a video on it and the difference between the two and its reasons? I'll do that. Regarding humor, you're good, sir, and your content is pure gold. Thanks a lot. Notwithstanding the urgent need for the rest of the world to invest in Bharat through FDI, FPI, there remains a need to enabling a security verification approval system. I agree with you there 100%. and we need to improve our system there. Mm. China was aided by USA, Bharat growing by its own way. Yeah. Yeah. So no voice, but he's the head of BlackRock, right? Leading real estate agent in the world, shifting base to India. That's what it is. Right. No, the reason is not because of my earphones. It sometimes happens for some reason you don't get audios. But like I said, after this I'll insert the audios. Yeah, this is not because of the headphones. Yeah. China provokes us by harassing our citizens in airports and Jawans in borders. In borders, our army has given response. What options we have to respond harassment of our civilians? Harass theirs, as simple as that. Couple of harassment and they'll be okay. Yeah, great session today should not be marked by tech. I can't help it. This is something which I've experienced earlier also, where the videos have not played. But like I said, I'll put those videos back. India is a giant that is rising, can't be stopped. Period. That's it. I'll not touch about. Yeah, and it's worth remembering that Israel has 1% of the fresh water India has. We have a hell of a lot. We have a lot of resources. There's no doubt about it. Yeah, every particle of India's earth is rare. The earth which does not have minerals can grow two, three crops every year. India is blessed. That's a very important point you make because not many countries have this capability or this to grow crops twice a year or thrice a year. After having followed Sir for so long, fully agree that China's CCP and its vassals Pak Bangla are our main adversaries. US is a dichotomy, sells us weapons, yeah, gives Bharat GCC also tariffs. But US is something we can handle. We can handle, but not we. Tough one will be China. We might have lost the initial lead, but it was apparent to anyone that America was overshooting its consumption. Ditto for China and Southeast Asia. They're all obsessed with aping the West. That's absolutely on the dot. Yeah, my metro line are picking pace. My city is packed, construction everywhere. I agree with you completely. Uh, Yeah, after successful area domination of the Siliguri corridor, we may consider looking eastwards in the right earnest, Myanmar and beyond. It's a matter of time. We'll have it. We will be there. Okay. Yeah. Our Pinakas beat High March any day. I agree with you. And the way we are going along the Pinaka road, we'll have much better capabilities than High March. Don't worry. Right. Yeah. We are rising, our people are rising, but our strategic ambitions are not. Still debating 42 squadrons in a world where US is retreating. Shouldn't we take over their roles in our region? All this happens incrementally. It can't happen overnight. Things will change. Things are changing. Like I said, if today the maritime sector is improving, it's only a matter of time that our aerospace sector will also start taking off. Maybe in a couple of years, you'll see the change. Change is happening. BYD is buying many car companies left, right, and center. One of their largest CKD or manufacturing units has closed Southern Command headquarters in Pune. Is this a threat to Indian economy and national security? Of course it is. And I'm sure things will get sorted out on their own, right? Uh, why BYD is being allowed is known, but it is only, it's not going to take off. Don't worry. You have to dream before your dreams come true. We are still thinking doctrinally as a small regional power. Will change. That's also changing. Don't worry. That's also changing. Yeah, domestic demand is directly proportional to increased earnings and inversely proportional to the cost of production. Can they remain price competitive with increased costs? That's market economics. I can't, you know, uh, predicate on that or pass a judgment on that. What you're saying is a market economic fact. Will it play out? Will it see? Yeah, video clips are muted. I get your feedback. I'll put it in because there's no way I can undo it now, but I'll put it in the clips again. I'll put it back. So I'd suggest you see it, say, after a couple of hours because that'll be the time it'll take me to download and insert those clips. What do you think is the real GDP of China, which they are projecting is true? Because there is a huge doubt amongst the world community regarding China. Will you please enlighten us? Go to Rhodium Group. Go to Rhodium and you see their things. As per Rhodium, 23-24, China had either negative growth or zero growth. So there's no growth, and that also is giving too much. My way of thinking in 2025, 24-25, they would be at about -1 to -2% contraction, but they're showing as something different. Yeah, just like you present the real Chinese numbers, can you also show how US is doing reality versus chest thumping? I'm sure a lot of people would be interested in US performance. Okay, I'll do it. But I'll be very honest with you. On US numbers, I have to develop expertise. On China, I've been studying China for a long time, so I know when they're lying and when they're not lying. But as far as US is concerned, it'll take me time to get to that. I'll have to study, but maybe after 5-6 months, I'll start coming out with it. We are trying to connect through IMEC in the south by Act East. Are we trying to become center of global supply chain? In a way, we will be. If your manufacturing improves, you will be the center of global supply chain. IMEC is one end is India. Act East is something which we have to develop. It's still in a developmental stage. Can China take Singapore's help like now? Then took God's help in night. You'd see Singapore is no more interested in that. That's the interesting part. Singapore itself is not interested in getting back to China. Is it time we raised an expeditionary force? No, we are too. It's too early. We shouldn't. Yeah, would be great if you can. The way smart cities like Amravati and Dholera are coming up in India and how real estate grew in China. Okay, I will. Let me study it and then get back to you on that. Yeah, barely 12 hours into Opsindhu, there were individuals on my college group opposed to the present government sharing a cartoon showing India's populace in our border states. Like, well, you'll have all such people. That's not a problem. Yeah. Imagine how lucky India's enemies are to have such a restrained and principled enemy as India. If only India were so lucky as to have another India as its enemy. Park, China, and USA. Yeah, in a way you're there, but I think the way to sustain growth and to handle a diverse population like us, you need to be principled. Our external behavior of being principled and restrained is also a reflection of what we do internally of balance and restraint and inclusiveness. That is something which many of us tend to miss. Our external restraint comes due to our internal balance. Amazing video, no audio from Siachen. Yeah. After EQ in Gujarat, there were guys who were used URS Mac to make a bed. Nice. Um, yeah. Everyone wants landscape. Okay. Landscape is only for mobile TikTok users. Vertical. Okay. Right. Fine. I'll from today evening onwards. I'll just do the landscape bit. Portrait is bad, confusing while selecting video. Okay. Take your time uploading corrected videos. It's just, yeah, yeah. Don't worry. Your analysis by intersection of geopolitics and economics is just best and techno maxim which presents 360 degrees views. That's the whole idea. We shouldn't have, you know, views from one particular window. You need to look at it from all round. Okay, is this is time you can bring Sri Iyer as a guest and talk about USDB? Maybe I will. Let me see how to get it. Okay, I think we're done for the day. Thanks a lot. In your opinion, on our Prachand versus Apache, Su 57 and Super Sequoia, we'll talk of all this later. I'm not going to talk about weapon systems now, right? Okay, so thanks a lot for joining on Sunday and for your valuable time you've given. I'm sorry I couldn't about those videos. I'll insert them and we'll get going. What I'll do is this video, what it is, will be there, but I'll insert those full videos again after each clip. Might become a bit longer, but you'll get a hang of it. Right. With this, thank you. Have a great day. Get back in the evening. We'll talk of Pakistan. Till then, Jai Hind to all of you.